Islamic terrorists the hell out of our country. Hollywood actors and Washington media are consoling each other in a hotel ballroom.
Welcome to the series finale of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. No one wanted this gig. No one. Donald Trump doesn't care about free speech.
We are not fake news.
Everybody's using the word fake news. Where did you hear it first, folks? The media deserves a very, very big, fat, failing grade. We are Americans, and the future belongs to us.
My childhood, this song. You guys remember the movie 10 Things I Hate About You?
Yes.
Came out when I was a teenager.
Don't tell me that. You know, when you were a teenager?
It reminds me of that. It brings me back.
I don't remember that movie. I watched the movie Hoosiers on repeat as a child.
We were 1980s. We were watching Never-Ending Story.
Yes.
Yes.
The Flying Dog.
Atreyu. Atreyu. Good morning, everyone. Welcome in on Sunday morning. Thanks so much for watching Fox and Friends
That's
this morning.
right. You may have had a late night last night. There were a few things, dueling events going on last night. You had the White
did
House
you catch them both?
I caught President Trump's speech, and then I caught highlights of the dinner.
I think most of our audience probably up late last night watching C-SPAN, watching the White House Correspondents' Dinner last night instead of enjoying their families out. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe they were tuning in. Or some of you maybe have been in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania yesterday at President Trump's big rally there. Look at all the people there. And on the right side of your screen, the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
That's right. The president pointed out that there were far more people in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is correct. And those split screens are perfect. It was the people versus the swamp. That's how the president characterized it.
Yeah.
And if you watch the speech, which went on for about 45 or 50 minutes, it was clear. This was the anti-White House Correspondents' Dinner. He talked about the media up front, and this is what he had to say.
Let's rate the media's 100 days. Should we do that? Should we do it? Media outlets like CNN and MSNBC are fake news. Fake news. If the media's job is to be honest and tell the truth, then I think we would all agree the media deserves a very, very big, fat, failing grade. A large group of Hollywood actors and Washington media, they are gathered together for the White House Correspondents' Dinner without the president. And I could not possibly be more thrilled than to be more than 100 miles away from Washington swamp, spending my evening with all of you.
I don't think he was having any fun in that moment.
Without the president.
Not at all.
Clearly he was having fun.
Clearly he was blasting the media there, and his audience, the crowd, was going nuts over that. But at the same time, as you guys were saying, the White House Correspondents' Dinner was going on. The president of that dinner, Jeff Mason, calling out the president for not being there and saying that they are not fake news. Take a listen to him.
At previous dinners, we have rightly talked about the threats to press freedoms abroad. Tonight, we must recognize that there are threats to press freedoms here in the United States. We must remain vigilant. The world is watching. Press access under President Trump has been very good. Nevertheless, we cannot ignore the rhetoric that has been employed by the president about who we are and what we do. Freedom of the press is a building block of our democracy. Undermining that by seeking to delegitimize journalists is dangerous to a healthy republic. It is our job to report on facts and to hold leaders accountable. That is who we are. We are not fake news. We are not failing news organizations. And we are not the enemy of the American people.
Some of the things he said there are interesting. He said that press access under this president has actually been great. And there's been a couple of reports recently from other major news organizations, including the New York Times, saying press access under this president better than it was in the previous administration. And he went on to praise this president.
Well, we had Eric McPike on yesterday, who's a White House reporter, and she talked about behind the scenes of the White House and what the reporters are experiencing. She said different from President Obama, who'd go back there, when the reporters would go back, behind the White House.
Right.
And he would say, no, I'm not answering any questions here. We're just kind of hanging out. And she said, it's the opposite with President Trump. He will say, ask me anything you want. I am an open book. And that's sort of how he is when you see him out on these rallies, when you see him in press conferences. He really is. I mean,
Twitter.
Yeah, he gives it to media, but he is an open book.
So they get all the access they want and more access than ever, but their feelings are hurt? I mean, count me as not sad. If you can't prove that you're not fake news, if you can't prove that your industry is failing people by not reporting what's true, then deal with it or adjust or succeed instead. I mean, this really is, the media tries to paint him as a crazy dictator, but if you watch his speech, he's the same guy as a president as he was as candidate. The speech was pure economic nationalism, borders versus globalism. It was patriotic. He called out Senator Schumer. This is who President Trump is, was the speech. And yet you watch the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and it's a totally different conversation.
Yeah, he was taking on Senator Schumer. He called him a failed leader. He's like, I've known him for a long time. He's a terrible leader. The guy has to read leadership books. If you have to read leadership books, that's a problem. And, Chuck Schumer's going to be on Fox News Sunday this morning with Chris Wallace.
Which means he might be in the building. We'll have to try to find him.
See about that. But it was interesting. When you're a comedian, you have to go in front of this room. It's an odd audience. It's more odd though when the president is actually in the room at the time. So he was not there. It must have been just an odd environment. So Hassan from The Daily Show, he's a correspondent with The Daily Show. He had to go on and he took pot shots at just about everyone in the room.
Wait, isn't The Daily Show a fake news show?
It's a
so wait, they said they weren't fake news, and then the guy they had come on was a correspondent for fake news.
So watch this and see this if this stuff falls flat for you, or if you laugh. Watch.
We all had that excuse, haven't we? We gotta address the elephant that's not in the room. The leader of our country is not here. And that's because he lives in Moscow. It is a very long flight. Who is tweeting at 3 a.m. sober? Donald Trump, because it's 10 a.m. in Russia. Those are business hours. Mike Pence wanted to be here tonight, but his wife wouldn't let him because apparently one of you ladies is ovulating. So, good job, ladies. Because of you, we couldn't hang out with Mike Pence. I do not see Steve Bannon. I do not see Steve Bannon. Not see Steve Bannon. Not see Steve Bannon. Jeff Sessions going to be here tonight? He was busy doing a pre-Civil War reenactment. On his RSVP, he just wrote no, just no, which happens to be his second favorite N-word.
I mean, the look on the faces in that audience. I mean, Daryl Issa, for one. I mean, just stone cold.
Yeah.
Some of those. I mean, I've been to this dinner a number of times, and usually jokes are cracked at the president and the administration. I have never seen them, though, this personal, as we just heard.
We've never seen anything like the way they hate this president. I mean, listen, I watched a lot of it. Some of it was funny, this stuff. But listen, they get away with racist remarks, sexist remarks. I mean, that's.
But it's okay because they're comedians,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Or no, because they're the left, and they can laugh at themselves because it's Steve Bannon who's a Nazi, and Jeff Sessions who's a racist, and Mike Pence is too traditional. But if we were to say the other way around, then we really are racist or sexist or whatever. It's an amazing double standard that's actually disgusting when you watch it.
I don't know.
Don't you think?
To me, if you can make people laugh, then you win. But to me, I wasn't laughing. I don't know.
Well, neither was the audience in a lot of those moments.
No, it just felt, a lot of the jokes just fell flat. I saw them coming from a mile away. That's where the jokes, you know, and I don't know, it just didn't work for me.
You do wonder if
I'm all for comedy, but that didn't work.
You wonder if they would have had the same jokes and the same lines had the president had been there. Right?
Maybe.
Or if they used the opportunity with him being gone to just go wild.
Well, and the jokes were so old, the Russia jokes.
Well, the Russia,
That's what I'm saying. We can see it coming from a mile away.
But that's still what they've got. 100 days in, he's done all this stuff and clearly showed that he's not colluding, and yet it's still Russia. It's still Vlad.
Yeah. All
Try
right.
something new. Maybe it'll be funny.
I do have some other headlines I want to bring you this morning. And to an extreme weather alert to begin. At least 5 people are now dead in Texas after a tornado almost half a mile wide tore through and created a 40-mile patch of destruction. Just look at the damage at this car dealership, which is almost unrecognizable. The National Weather Service confirming 3 tornadoes touched down outside of Dallas. And meanwhile, torrential rains triggering dangerous flooding. This scary scene in Missouri. And in Indiana, a house exploding into flames after a lightning strike. Everyone did make it out safely. We'll keep a close eye on that weather throughout the morning. And now to a Fox News alert, a manhunt intensifying for a man and a woman responsible for a deadly shooting spree in Los Angeles.
Male driver, female passenger. The female handed the male driver a gun who shot the victim unprovoked.
Police say that the suspects carjacked an SUV, then drove through neighboring communities, firing at several people, killing one of them. The SUV later found abandoned. Police are on the lookout for other possible victims. And President Trump sending a strong warning to North Korea after latest failed missile launch. The president speaking to CBS's Face the Nation.
This was a small missile. This was not a big missile. This was not a nuclear test, which he was expected to do 3 days ago. We'll see what happens.
You say not happy. What does that mean?
I would not be happy. If he does a nuclear test, I will not be happy.
Well, the USS Carl Vinson just arrived at the Sea of Japan and joined South Korea's force to conduct military drills. And liberal elites on a mission to save the Earth. Al Gore spotted with fans at a climate march in Washington, D.C. on Saturday. Actor and climate crusader Leonardo DiCaprio also marching while holding a sign of a manila folder that reads, "Climate change is real." This despite DiCaprio's use of private jets to travel the world for pleasure. Well, he even rented the world's 5th largest yacht from an oil tycoon that didn't run on solar power. Say it ain't so, Leo.
Leo,
I love that. I love that hypocrisy.
Well, I do too. I also love that he didn't have enough time to put a sign together other than on a manila folder.
Hey.
I mean, this is your big climate rally.
Yeah, that's
He must have learned from you, Pete.
Yeah, exactly. This is all my show prep on the folder. But
Well, with 100 days down, what will the next 100 days bring for President Trump and the American people? Lisa Booth is on deck with a preview.
Plus, how about Chuck Schumer's last 100 days? Is the New York senator, otherwise known as Fake Tears Chuck Schumer, leading Democrats to doom, as President says? Well, we're going to debate it.
Plus, look who's hitting the campaign trail. Can you say Zuckerberg 2020?
600,000 new jobs. We've also stepped up the fight against ISIS. I've signed legislation to extend veterans' choice. I've signed 29 new bills.
That was President Trump in Harrisburg last night, listing his accomplishments as he celebrates his 100-day milestone in Pennsylvania last night. So what should we expect for the next 100 days?
So the next 100 days. With us now as a preview is Fox News contributor Lisa Booth. Lisa, nice to see you this morning.
Lisa.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Thanks for waking up so early.
Well, it's always nice to be with you.
So let's dive in. So this next 100 days is going to be more, perhaps way more important than the first 100 days. Now the White House is set. We know, well, at least part of the staff is there. There's still a lot of people that aren't a part of that staff. What can we expect for the next 100 days?
Well, I think it's going to be really boring, just as the last 100 days have been, with very little activity and really nothing moving forward. All kidding aside, no, I think that President Trump is going to continue this breakneck pace that we have seen in moving forward with a lot of these executive actions. But I think also it's important to look to Congress. We know at least next week, Kevin McCarthy, House Majority Leader, announced that the House will be voting on sanctions against North Korea. We also know that Congress briefly passed a short-term continuing resolution for the budget. So that's something that they're going to be addressing next week in the short term. I think in the longer term, over the next 100 days for the administration, it's going to be a priority to see health care get done, because they really haven't had a big achievement in terms of legislation in Congress. So this is obviously a priority of this White House. And I think both President Trump and Congress, Republicans in Congress, are going to want to see that get done.
Yeah, they call this first 100 days a honeymoon period for a reason, right? Because especially for someone like President Trump, who's never been a politician, never been in Washington, D.C. before as president, figuring out the kinks. So what do you think the biggest lessons were that he learned over these past 100 days to help him be successful?
Well, I think we saw some missteps early on, particularly with the first travel pause that was announced, just sort of a sloppy rollout. But I think we've really seen the administration hit its stride. And I think we've seen the president demonstrate decisive leadership in terms of foreign policy, which really wasn't something I think his critics thought that they would see from this president. So I think we've also seen them hit their stride in terms of communications, most specifically with the president visiting Wisconsin and announcing the Buy American, Hire American. That was very well orchestrated from a communication standpoint. So I think they've gotten a little bit more organized and are kind of hitting their stride and working together now that they have the full cabinet in place.
Biggest battle between perhaps the White House and Republicans, Lisa?
I think it's all going to be a struggle, to be honest, because Republicans, at least in the Senate, they only have 52 Republicans. So it's a very slim majority. So there's not a lot of room for error, particularly in looking at the reconciliation process with health care and tax reform. And if we're having this much trouble in the House, guys, can you imagine what it's going to look like in the Senate? So I think both of those big ticket items with health care and tax reform, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, you've got Republicans in charge across the board. This is a real opportunity. We'll see what they do with it. Lisa, good to have you here this morning.
Thanks, guys. Great to see you. Have a wonderful day.
All right, well, it happened again. Another airline outrage, all caught on camera. And this time, a pilot accused of punching a female passenger. The punishment the pilot is now facing.
And the president says Chuck Schumer is leading Democrats to doom. Is he right? We'll debate that next.
Democrats in Congress have no leadership. They're rudderless. Senator Schumer is a bad leader. He's leading the Democrats to doom.
And welcome back. Some quick headlines for you. President Trump inviting the leader of the Philippines to the White House. The invitation made over the phone this weekend as our commander-in-chief congratulated Rodrigo Duterte, on Duarte. Thank you. It's early, and I've got allergies in my eye. On cracking down hard on drug lords in his country. And President Trump marking his 100th day in office with 2 new executive orders. The president ordering a review of free trade agreements and also creating a permanent trade policy office at the White House. The new signings raised the number of executive orders by President Trump to 32. Duarte. Pete, over to you, Duarte.
You recovered well. Can you name the Democrats' next rising star? Even party leaders have a tough time answering that one.
Lots of people.
Lots of people. One name?
Lots of people. I'm not going to pick a name, but if he continues at the rate
Who's the leader of the Democratic Party? You?
Well, we have a bunch of leaders. You know, I certainly am the leader of the Senate, and I try to help represent the Democratic Party, but we have a lot of very good voices. It's much too premature to handicap 2020.
All right, lots of names, but President Trump has another explanation.
Democrats in Congress have no leadership. They're rudderless. Senator Schumer is a bad leader. He's leading the Democrats to doom.
He went on to say he has to read books about leadership, which is a not good sign of leadership. But what does this mean for the party's chances of reclaiming Congress and the White House? Here to debate it, Adrian Elrod, former director of strategic communications for Hillary Clinton, and Scott Jennings, former special assistant to President George W. Bush. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Adrian, I will start with you. Is it just Chuck Schumer being coy, doesn't want to name names, put a name out there, create a target, or do Democrats really have a long list?
Look, first of all, it's early. I mean, we're barely 100 days into President Trump's presidency. But look, we've got a deep bench for 2020. We've got progressives like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. We've got business leaders like potentially Mark Cuban or Howard Schultz. We've got moderates like Governor Terry McAuliffe and Tim Ryan from Ohio. We've got a deep bench leading into the midterms and into 2020. So we'll see what shakes out.
So, Scott, she says deep bench. What do you say?
I think all these people have the same problem Hillary Clinton had, and that is the Democratic Party has lost connectivity with urban, suburban, and exurban America. They all have roughly the same message, and they're all running on the same policies, and those policies led to electoral disaster in 2016. I think President Trump is right. I think the Democratic Party is rudderless. There was a survey the other day from Harvard-Harris that said 40% of people said the Democrats have no leader. Bernie Sanders and Tom Perez are out traveling the country, openly fighting about what Democrats supposedly stand for. And Bernie Sanders says to news reporters that he's not even a Democrat himself. This is a party with a real identity crisis because they have no message.
Adrian, if you remember after 2012, Republicans did a postmortem and said, hey, well, how do we need to change? And then along came President Trump to disrupt that entire process because it turned out the electorate wanted something else. What is the base of the Democrat Party? What do you truly want? What kind of candidate do you believe will emerge?
Well, you know, again, we're just 100 days into President Trump's presidency. We've got a long ways to go. But what I will tell you, one thing President Trump has done, he has united the resistance like it's never been united before. Yesterday, we had a climate change march in Washington, D.C. Tens of thousands of people flocked upon this city to advocate for climate change and to protect the environment. You've never seen the resistance so united before.
But Adrian, is that papering over differences by having a common enemy? Or, I mean, that doesn't change the fact that you've got, as you said, more moderates, but you also have a very progressive wing. You've got a socialist wing in Bernie Sanders. How does that get reconciled?
Look, the Democratic Party is very diverse. We've got all kinds of folks who fall under the tent of our party. We are a big tent party. But again, at the end of the day, Donald Trump is united. So progressives, moderates, so many people, tens of thousands of people flocked on this city for the march. We're really seeing the resistance united like it's never been united before.
Scott, it always seems to come back to resistance and President Trump.
Yeah, this talk of resistance, it's really rage. There are people that are enraged that Donald Trump and Republicans won the election, and the Democratic Party is not a big tent party. If you're pro-life, there's no room for you. If you're pro-Second Amendment, there's no room for you in the Democratic Party. If you're not a strict adherent to extreme left-wing ideology, then there's no room for you in the Democratic Party, and that's exactly why that party has lost connectivity with rural America and suburban America. It's exactly why Donald Trump won Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan, and it's going to hurt the Democratic Party in the midterm when the electorate composition is even more friendly to candidates who do have more right-of-center ideology.
Well, Scott, interesting point. The midterms will be a first glimpse at what 2020 will look like. Adrienne Elrod, Scott Jennings, thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, it's something we haven't heard that President Trump say before.
Very respected general recently told me that MS-13 are the equivalent in their meanness to Al-Qaeda.
That's a big usage to tie him to Al-Qaeda. So who is this MS-13, and are they a threat to your community? Former New York police officer Dan Bongino is here next. And our own Griff Jenkins was on the ground as the president's rally happened last night. Hear from the swing state voters who helped get President Trump elected. And forget aspirin, why beer, that's right, why beer may now be the best cure for a hangover. Of course, a little hair of the dog. We're going to bring it to you.
If the media's job is to be honest and tell the truth, then I think we would all agree the media deserves a very, very big, fat failing grade. Media outlets like CNN and MSNBC are fake news. Fake news.
We are not fake news. We are not failing news organizations. And we are not the enemy of the American people.
All right, let's now bring in former Secret Service agent and the host of the Renegade Republican, Dan Bongino. Dan, always good to have you with us.
Morning, Dan.
Thank you.
So these dueling events last night, media versus Trump, who's winning this one?
Oh, Trump, hands down. Listen, this guy is a gold medal troller of the media, Trump. Last night was just, it was like an epic performance here. He really has his finger on the pulse of the American people. Here's what he knows that the mainstream media doesn't. It's not just that middle America feels like the mainstream media is helping the opposition party. They feel like the mainstream media is the opposition party.
Mm-hmm. So
Trump gets that, the media doesn't.
So you don't think that that Mason defense of it at the White House Correspondents' Dinner was sufficient enough, do you?
Guys, seriously. I mean, let me, if I was the media right now trying to salvage my reputation in what they call flyover country and what we call home, what I wouldn't do, here's what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't get a bunch of Hollywood actors, dress them up in tuxedos, send them into the D.C. swamp to eat what, like foie gras and sushi and caviar together, and then send the guy up there and say, oh yeah, and by the way, we're the ones who really have our fingers on the pulse of what middle America needs. Are you kidding me? If there was a list of 1 through 10 things of what not to do to save your failing reputation, they did all of them yesterday.
Including number 11, which is
big time.
Give yourself a standing ovation at the end.
Which
for
they
being
did.
defenders.
Let's give ourselves a round of applause.
Exactly. Like, let's engage in a self-congratulatory round of applause and pat each other on the back while people are actually working for a living in what they call, again, flyover country.
Boy,
we actually do real jobs.
Well, you're right. Speaking of a real job, you had the president in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, giving a speech while all of that was going on. And he hit on a major theme last night was law and order, the border, illegal immigration. And he talked about MS-13 in very stark terms, comparing them to Al-Qaeda. And he said to Democrats, what side are you on? Take a listen.
Very respected general recently told me that MS-13 are the equivalent in their meanness to Al-Qaeda.
And they're right here on American soil.
Yeah.
That's the scary part.
Yeah. Yeah, well, listen, they both use violence and extreme violence for the same reason. So the strategic tactics of these two groups really aren't that much different. I mean, think about it, right? You have one group that'll kill a bunch of kids with power tools and leave them in the woods in Long Island, or hit them with hammers or whatever it may be. And then you have another group, Al-Qaeda or ISIS, and these groups overseas that'll drown people in cages and set them on fire. The purpose of the violence is to intimidate. And while MS-13 may be interested in control of territory for drug sales and things like that and illegal activities, Al-Qaeda is interested in subjugation, and ISIS the same. But
Sure.
the use of violence as a tactic is very similar.
I mean, for people that don't know MS-13, help explain who exactly they are.
Yeah, this is a group of formerly El Salvadorian guerrillas, the Salvatruchan guerrillas, and these are hardened criminals, Abby. Make no mistake, these aren't just a couple of light gangbangers interested in selling some grass to your kids. These are guerrilla fighters overseas who've been involved in some of the most intense guerrilla warfare and drug wars. That was the first generation. These are people that came over and now recruited the second generation from a lot of the illegal immigrant population, in Long Island, New York specifically, and in L.A. And that's what they are. These are hardened guerrillas. Like I said, these aren't just light gangbangers looking for a good time.
Well, and the president is clearly seizing on their unfortunate violence to show the consequences of illegal immigration, no doubt.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're interconnected. This is the fuel that feeds their recruiting fire. There's no different. You can't, there's no other way. This is where they get their population from. They feed on isolated populations of illegal immigrants. No question about it.
Yeah.
All right, Dan Bongino, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Have a great Sunday, Dan.
You got it, guys. Have a good morning.
We want to turn now to a Fox News alert. 3 violent tornadoes ripping across Oklahoma, claiming 5 lives, injuring at least 50 others.
Meanwhile, torrential rains triggering deadly flooding as neighborhoods submerged in water, killing 2 people in Missouri and Arkansas.
Well, let's get straight to meteorologist Adam Klotz, where he's tracking this entire system.
Hey, good morning, guys. And it continues here early this morning. This is a big one stretching across large portions of the country. Even early here on this Sunday morning, we're tracking a line of very strong showers. Let's take a look at where it's at, moving now into the center of the country, right along the Mississippi River. That leading edge, we've seen some tornadic activity here early this morning. We've seen very heavy thunderstorms and then heavy rain, which has been the biggest story with this. I do want to point out on the backside of this, and fascinating, we're getting all the possible weather patterns here early. There was snow, standing snow on the ground in Denver, Colorado yesterday. The backside of this, there's some cold air there, so we're going to continue to see a little bit of snow creeping across some of the upper elevations there in the western half of the United States. But the real concern is going to be the leading edge of this, where we're seeing very heavy rains, at times 7 to 10 inches in isolated areas. So some of these storms begin to train a little bit, and that's going to be a concern. So the flooding we saw yesterday, I'm expecting we're going to see more video like that before the end of today. So this is a big system that we're going to be paying attention to, guys.
All right, thank you, Adam. Unreal. May 1st tomorrow. Snow out west. You saw that in Salt Lake City.
Yeah,
my parents are there right now. They say it's really unusual.
Yeah, you got 90 degrees elsewhere.
But the skiers are loving it. All right, turning now to some other headlines. A U.S. soldier paying the ultimate price in a battle against ISIS. The unidentified service member killed by an explosion during a raid by coalition forces in Iraq. It is the 3rd U.S. service member killed this week alone. The first 2 were Army Ranger Sergeant Joshua Rogers and Sergeant Cameron Thomas, who died fighting ISIS in Afghanistan. And another black eye for the airline industry. Delta Airlines defending a pilot now after a video surfaces allegedly showing him slapping a female passenger at an Atlanta airport.
Knock it off.
It has been all 3 airlines now. Well, that pilot apparently trying to break up a fight between 2 passengers in a jetway. Delta suspending him after last week's incident, but he's now back to work after investigators found, quote, his actions de-escalated an altercation. Okay, well, this comes within weeks of a man being dragged off a United Airlines flight. You all remember that. And an American Airlines flight attendant getting into an altercation with a passenger. When is this going to end?
Calm down a little bit.
And is Mark Zuckerberg campaigning across middle America? The billionaire Facebook founder leaving his cushy California home to chat up a mayor in Indiana and surprise voters at lunch. Well, Zuckerberg reportedly asking to meet with Democrats who voted for President Trump to get their thoughts on politics. Zuckerberg plans to visit all 50 states in an effort to get known to the American, well, I guess to get to know the American President Trump, to know why he won.
He's going to hit the road and figure it out.
Learn.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
All right, well, got a headache? We'll crack open a cold one.
Hey, Johnny, how about a beer, huh?
Ooh, couple Charles Bukowskis?
Couple Brustoyevskis?
Well, a study from the University of Greenwich says drinking just 2 beers helps reduce pain better than over-the-counter painkillers do.
Yes.
Researchers say your alcohol blood level just needs to be around 0.8% to decrease your pain by a quarter. So let us know what you think about that. Send us an email at friends@foxnews.com. Later in the show, several doctors are going to be here to answer your viewer questions.
Yeah, so a little bit later in the show, send in your most embarrassing questions. Are you afraid to ask a doctor? We're gonna
ask them on live television.
Ask them on live television, and we're going to have our doctors answer.
And I just love studies that confirm what we all know. Right. Have a couple beers. After it, everything feels a little better.
Yesterday with this allergy, my eyeball feels like a,
Did you just do a beer?
I had a beer, and it's like, wow, I feel fantastic. Thank you.
Took a long nap.
This morning.
Thank you, beer.
Beer, beer doesn't make anything worse, does it? Mm-mm. All right, how do former Democrats who switched parties to vote for President Trump, how do they feel about his first 100 days?
Scale of 1 to 10, how's the president doing?
99.9% approval rating.
Next 100 days, what do you hope President Trump does?
Well, keep on doing what he's doing now.
Griff Jenkins talked to folks in homemade hats and the forgotten men and women at last night's rally. He joins us live next. There he is.
And a hacker who humiliated Netflix, releasing one of his hit shows early for free, is about to strike again.
And we are back with some quick headlines. The hacker that leaked the new season of Netflix hit Orange is the New Black, threatening to do it again. The dark overlord posting on Twitter, "We are not playing games anymore." The hacker calling out Netflix for failing to respond with a ransom, stating they're going to lose a lot more money now with the releases. This case has now the attention of the feds. Orange is the New Black Season 5 was originally scheduled for June 9th. And organizers behind the failed Fyre Festival, you heard the story in the Bahamas, now issuing an apology, saying they were in over their heads. Festival goers shelling out thousands of dollars for what was supposed to be a luxury weekend getaway, only to find mass disorganization in a half-built festival site. Well, this year's guests now being promised refunds and VIP passes for next year's festival, which now will be in the U.S.
Oops. Should have planned.
I saw someone on Instagram say, I just arrived at the Fyre Festival, and it was an empty whole room with one little guy playing drums.
So sad.
Fun time.
Party like the stars.
It wasn't in stark contrast to last night in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. President Trump drew another huge crowd in his rally in Pennsylvania.
That's right. And Fox News correspondent Griff Jenkins was there to get the pulse of the people. Griff, how was it?
Hey, good morning, Abby, Pete, and Clayton. You know, I'll tell you, as much of the media is talking about record low ratings for President Trump at this 100-day mark, when you're in Harrisonburg at that rally, it was anything but among the faithful. Take a look. 100 days ago, Donald J. Trump became the 45th president of the United States because of voters like the ones you see and hear behind me in Pennsylvania. We hit the ground to find out what they think this many days later. These folks have been here a very long time. This is number one. It's the 100th day.
Yes.
How do you think the president's doing?
I think he's doing fantastic, is what I think he's doing fantastic. Big league.
Here is Gene. This guy.
He's an A+ as far as I'm concerned, the way he's doing.
What is the message?
Peace through strength.
You got a Border Patrol hat on. Do you feel like he's done justice to his campaign promises on the border?
Absolutely.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how's the president doing?
99.9% approval rating.
Next 100 days, what do you hope President Trump does?
Well, keep on doing what he's doing now.
If you could say something to President Trump tonight, you get to talk to him, what would you say to him?
I would want him to sign my hat.
It's 100 days. How'd he do? What do you give him on a report card?
Well, if you hear the mainstream media, he didn't do much, but he has done a lot. It's not his fault, it's Congress's. We need to kick them in the behind.
I see Republican, Democrat, the Donald.
Yes.
President Trump is going to speak right there, came over here to talk to you. What would you say to him?
Pass out first.
Yeah?
I just want to tell him, like, thank you. Thank you for standing up for the American people.
Don't worry about what the fake media says. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep pressing Congress to get tax reform done, get the health care passed.
How do you feel he's been treated in Washington since he got there? like the outsider that he is, and that's why I voted for him. You going passionate here. There's a message. What is the message here?
Make America great again.
I'm sitting in the stands.
The last regime didn't do anything to help the working man, and it's time we get somebody in there that cares.
Is there something you hope he accomplishes in the next 100 days or in the next year?
You know, I mostly just really want America to be strong.
Is this your first time to see Donald Trump?
Yes, it is.
You hear Adele playing. Where would you rather be, an Adele concert or hearing President Trump speak?
President Trump.
And what's significant there, you saw that sign in the middle of the package, promises made, promises kept, while many of us here in Washington point to his failure to move things like health care and major legislative issues. The faithful, they believe those promises have been kept, and they're 100% behind him. There were also some protesters out there, a few hundred, but they did turn out to voice their opinion as well.
To be expected. Good work out there, Griff.
Thanks for covering it, Griff. Appreciate it.
That
All
is
right.
America.
Yep.
It really is.
Speaking
I love
truth.
That.
All right, we have a big show ahead this Sunday morning. We've got Michelle Malkin. We've got David Bossie, Kellyanne Conway from the White House, and Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. Big lineup.
Plus, liberal elites like Al Gore and Leonardo DiCaprio joining climate crusaders in Washington. Kat Timpf, host of the new show, The Fox News Specialists. That's the name. Here is with...
Welcome back. Well, liberal elites on a mission to save the earth. Al Gore and Leonardo DiCaprio protesting the president's first 100 days by marching for climate change in D.C. yesterday.
And here to react, host of the new show, The Fox News Specialists, Kat Timpf is here.
Our own specialist.
Good morning,
Specialist.
Thanks for being here.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So what do you, well, first of all, what do you think about this big climate change march?
I think it worked. I think everything's perfect now. There's no pollution. The whole world is saved. No, I mean, it's virtue signaling.
Do you think the climate's changing?
Yeah, sure. I think anything that you put into the environment, it's going to affect it just like in any other situation. But there's only so much we can do, particularly just this country. We could, even if we went back to all riding horses and buggies and all of that, it wouldn't make that much of a difference. We would just, destroy our entire economy.
But is Leonardo the right spokesperson?
And did you like the
Right.
sign that he made? He took a lot of time he put into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So climate change is real.
Yeah,
Well, it's busy when you're traveling the world in your jet.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have time.
Exactly. But then, he and Al Gore fly around in their jets. But, you got to pick an issue. You got to go with it. You have to show you care about something. He clearly picked the climate. There's only so much we can do in terms of solutions. And they clearly understand that, or else they wouldn't be flying around their jets all the time.
All right, Kat, so the 5 has moved to 9 o'clock,
Yes.
and you are a part of a new show called The Fox
Kat,
News
this is
Specialist.
so exciting.
It's very
5 o'clock.
exciting. Yeah, it's going to be
Tell us
me,
about it.
Eric Bolling, and Ebony Williams.
Okay.
And then there's going to be 2 guest specialists based on the news of the day.
So it'll be still 5 people.
Yes.
But it's
Five
just
at
a
five.
different name. So the specialists will be like, they'll come in on either side?
Exactly, and it's going to be based on the news of the day. So the whole idea is that the opinions, 40% of them are going to change based on who the specialists are every single day.
Do you know who they are on Monday?
We're going to have Mark Cuban, I believe, on Monday. And then
interesting.
one more. So, and it's going to be in the new studio, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fantastic. I'm really excited
Well,
about
if
it.
you're there, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot. We all have different views, Ebony, Eric, and I, as it is, and then the 2 specialists that are going to change all the time. So it's going to be like nothing anyone's ever seen before. So you got to watch it, got to check it out. I think it's going to be a great time.
Tuning in.
Awesome.
Congratulations, Kat.
Thank
That is
you.
so exciting, and thanks for being with us this morning.
Congrats. All right, well, the liberal media reacts to President Trump's Harrisburg rally, and here's a hint. Guess what? They didn't really like it.
And we have a huge show still ahead of us. Chris Wallace, Michelle Malkin, Kellyanne Conway, and more.